All right, we're back live. Philip, take it away.
Thanks, Omar. So it's an honor to announce our next guest. Most of you will know him as CyberSec Stu, but Stuart Peck heads up the cybersecurity strategy for Zero Day Labs. Stuart has over 13 years experience in the information security industry, including delivering threat intelligence, social engineering, incident response projects. He is also an expert on open source intelligence and is regularly asked to deliver talks on the latest attacker trends facing organizations today. Stuart has been featured in leading news sites, including Security Affairs, The State of Security, ZDNet, Bleeping Computer, The Daily Mail, and the Tribe of Hackers Blue Team book. He is a 3-time Black Badge winner for Trace Labs Global OSINT Search Party competition for missing people and volumes of National Child Protection Task Force, using the skills to find missing children and organized criminals globally. Stuart founded the Many Hats Club in 2017, a large community that has organized 2 conferences raising over $30K for profits, hosted CTFs, and a podcast. Welcome, Stuart.
Excellent. What an introduction. Thank you very much. And it's an honor to be introduced by you, Philip, and also an honor to be here today. I'm going to do a talk on why you should build a community. In my infinite wisdom, I thought it would be a really good idea to deliver this talk in using Discord. And actually, it turns out it's possibly not the best medium for delivering a talk. So we'll see how this actually goes, and please bear with me on this. But as Philip said, I'm Stu. You can find me on Twitter under CyberSec Stu, or you can find my community, the Many Hats Club, or you can find one of the projects which I'm about to release, which is Venari, which is an open source intelligence VM, which will be releasing very, very shortly, and we're doing some pretty unique stuff for that. Also, the conference which I run, conferences I ran, which Philip mentioned, Isolation Con and ConInt also as well. I do a lot of work in the community and have been for over about 3 years. I've built quite a sizable community and have had quite a lot of experience in kind of running that, and kind of want to impart some of the knowledge on why you probably should run a community, and the many lessons you can learn from the many mistakes that I have made over the years, in hopes that you can actually build your own really good community and all that kind of stuff. And of course, there's obligatory memes of me, and of course there are many of those in this presentation. But what I will say is why we should build a community, and what things should we be trying to do. And I want to talk about some of the things which have happened over the last sort of 3 years, and why a community is quite important and can actually do lots of really kind of good things. And on some of those things that we decided, when we started out 3 years ago, the bit of background about the Many Hats Club is that we've got about, I think we had about 10,000 people, and then one day I kicked 2,500 people from the community. So we're about just under 8,000 at the moment. But, we decided as to start this community, and it was really because Twitter wasn't a really good place to have kind of deep and meaningful conversations. So we kind of went out to, Twitter to ask, what platform should we use? And ultimately we found Discord as our kind of home. And it's not strictly our home, it's just one of the places where we kind of operate as a community, because as we've kind of grown, we've branched out to other areas, and we do lots of other things, and collaborated on many projects. So the one thing that really kind of drove the community is the podcast. And we've had about 103 episodes, guests from everyone from Dave Kennedy, actually Brian and Chloe, actually from Hacking Not a Crime, have been on it as well. A whole range of people, Troy Hunt, and that really helped us kind of form and build the community out a little bit by bringing people into it and having an opportunity for people to ask questions, those people that may not get an opportunity to speak to on, say, Twitter or whatever it may be, and ask questions and get involved in the podcast. So it was one of the really good building blocks for us. one of the things that I think that really helped, and one of the things I wanted to try and do with this community, was to try and use it as a platform to raise money for non-profits. So last year we decided to do our first kind of virtual conference, and we raised about £10,300 for Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, and that was a really, really good, one day, 3-track conference, after parties, all that kind of stuff. And we were, the sole purpose of that was to really knowledge and learning and all that kind of great stuff, but really to raise money. And then we formed up Conint, which was an intelligence focused conference, which again raised about roughly about $19,000, I think it was, for both Trace Labs and the National Child Protection Task Force, which I now volunteer for. We've done things like hosting like multiple CTFs and things like this, and try to build something and try to give something back to the community. We built our own CTF team. We had a sort of hacking CTF team and an OSINT CTF team, and those have been really quite successful. We've actually did quite a lot of when you could go outside and meet people and all that kind of stuff. We hosted like meetups, and we had meetups pretty much all over the world actually. So we had meetups happening in Europe, and we had a few meetups happening in the US and the UK and things like this. So the community was really quite global, and it was quite impressive to see people meeting up at conferences and kind of networking and building their own kind of little communities within communities. And then things like collaborating on tools and releasing a number of tools. But ultimately, it was we kind of started within ourselves, and then we realized that lots of other communities spun off out of our community, which is brilliant. And then we created what we called like a cross community collaboration server, where we brought other communities together so we could share ideas and bounce ideas off each other, and that still exists today. So we kind of brought other communities together and created like a network of communities where we can actually share ideas, and we actually worked on a few projects together and things like this, and actually sort of shared ban lists and things like this, so we could work out people that were particularly trying to disrupt communities. People could be aware of those kind of individuals and stuff like this. So and of course, like being slightly odd, one of the meetups that we had, which was at 44Con, I turned up to the meetup and everyone was wearing a mask of me, which was slightly disturbing. So I guess that's one of those things. But I guess we start the importance of communities, but I guess the point I want to try and think about is why should you build a community, and why should your community exist? And I had a little think about this, because there are lots of communities out there. So there's obviously Hacking Is Not a Crime, there's got the Red Team Village, you've got you've got Trusted Sec community, you've got Dead Pixel Sec, you've got so many communities out there that are doing great things, but you should probably still think about building your own, because there's always a need for a community. There's always a need for you to build something with your people that maybe you start close and you expand it out, but there's always a need to do that. So you just think about why you're building community, and why does that need to exist, and what function is it going to serve? So if you've got your own brand and you've already got a brand, then of course it's quite easy to leverage that. So for example, the Hack the Box community, obviously Hack the Box community is massive, and their Discord community is absolutely huge. But if you're kind of looking at building out your own, you're starting from scratch, you might want to think about some of these questions, like what is your community going to be, and who's it going to be for? It's quite important. Is it going to be for you and your close friends, and you're going to hang out and conduct research, or you're going to build something that's a bit more wider and something a bit more for everyone? It might be you're building out a community to focus on recruiting new people into the industry, or mentoring people, and I've seen that done very well as well, where people that build communities for the sole purpose of mentoring and bringing mentors in to help upskill people, which is a really good thing. And how would your community be different? What is going to make your community stand out a little bit, and why would someone want to join that? What are they going to get from it? So it could be access to tools or collaboration on tools, or it could be they want to you're running a stream and it's just a place for people to hang out and talk after a stream and get involved. There could be a whole range of things that you could do, but it's certainly something worth thinking about. And what will keep people in your community? Some things I'll talk about in a kind of a little bit are it's quite easy once you start a community and get it going, but it's keeping people there and keeping people engaged, which is really difficult. And from my own experience, is you'll get a core set of people that will identify and will stay in that community and be very active, and you'll get people that will lurk and will drop in and drop out. So how do you get more people engaged, and how do you get more people to be active? And this is very much down to the tone and the safe, I won't say the safety factor, but some degree the welcoming factor. How welcoming is your community? Are you gatekeeping too much, or are you open, and do people feel welcome? Because if you're quite new in infosec and you join a community, it can be quite daunting. So is it a place where people might not feel welcome, or is it a place where people will feel welcome, and actually how will you keep people in? And then one of the things which I'll talk a little bit about is, do you have time to run this community? Because it is a very time-consuming activity. I didn't realize how time-consuming it actually is until I started doing it. I thought, yeah, I'll just spin up a community and we'll just hang out. And as it grew to quite significant numbers and we started to do more and more things, it sort of takes more and more of your time up. So actually, it's quite a time-consuming kind of undertaking, and trying to work out whether that's best for you and how much time you have to give to it will actually result in what the output of that community will be in terms of how successful it is. Of course, you could just delegate that to someone else and build a mod team and let them do it all. But ultimately, people will look to you as someone who founded that community as being the person which actually is started it, and it's quite important to do that. So community is quite important. Make sure you check those things off, and kind of think about what is you're trying to do. In terms of platform, when I was looking at different platforms, there are so many platforms to look at, and you need to sort of think about what platform's kind of best for you, because there are so many different choices out there. You could go to Slack, you could go to Discord, or you could look at some of the other things that are out there. There's so many different things. You could start looking at Matrix, Element, or whatever it may be. There are so many different options at your disposal. So thinking about what community is best for you, what's going to serve your community, is quite important. And some of the things to think about is you go for something that's going to be quite easy to use over something that's quite complex. Are you going to go for something that's text-based only, or are you going to have something that's going to include voice or kind of media? Are you going to have something that's self-hosted, or you're going to go for something that's hosted, dedicated platform, or whatever it may be? But make sure it has dark mode. That's obviously quite important. But think about reaching out to the community, your kind of market, and who you're going to speak to, and asking them to see what they might want, because actually that helps build ownership, which is what you want, especially at those kind of early stages. And actually, OffSec, when they were building their community, had this form which they sent to me actually, and they asked their community what platform they wanted to use, and again, that actually helped them decide what platform they were going to build on. So actually going out and reaching out and finding out what survey's best is usually a good thing to do, if that makes sense. So in terms of like pitfalls, it is actually quite hard running a community. So it's not all, I guess the way, it's not so easy. Sometimes there are challenges. So my first bit of advice is get a good mod team, get a really good sort of moderator team, or get a core set of people that are going to help you run that community, because it's going to be quite difficult at the early stages, especially when you get quite a few people join. Ensure that you have a decent code of conduct, because us infosec people, we love to find those loopholes, and trust me, I have had many conversations with people where they have found ways around our code of conduct, and they always will do, which is fine. There is a kind of responsibility when come to running a community, so and it can take a toll. So make sure you're kind of mentally ready for that, especially as it grows. These things get harder. Well, one kind of challenge that I found in the past is you're not responsible for other people's actions, but ultimately, as the person that leads that community, people will kind of look to you to take some form of responsibility. So be ready for that. And of course, think about it takes a lot of time to get something off the ground. So it does get easier with time, but it does take a little bit of time to get things off the ground. So there are those kind of things to think about. Apparently don't ping everyone, because that actually people don't like that, and I found that in the past as well. In terms of lessons and things that I've learned is kind of running large communities, it does take a lot of your spare time. So be mindful of that. It can be highly frustrating at times as well. So nothing always goes to plan, and people usually will try and disrupt things. So try to be mindful of that. Don't try and take on too much too soon. So I learned that mistake many a times, where we try to take on too many things and too many projects, and pretty much when you take on too many projects, people don't take so well to them. So we try to write like a community book. We try to build like a bunch of tools. We had a research server. We had a whole bunch of other things, and only a few of those things really stuck. So we try to take on too much, and focus is actually quite important in most of these kind of things. If you don't engage people, and you don't engage your community and give them a reason to stay, they will leave. And actually having a reason, back to my earlier point, having a reason for people to stay is actually quite an important thing, because things will drop off after your first 6 months. And so if people aren't feeling engaged or getting the right interaction or the right level of whatever it may be, they will leave, and that's fine. But ultimately, if it keeps happening, then obviously that will affect your community. And automate as much as you can, because we've built our own bots, and they're incredibly useful. But there are obviously bots you can use, but ultimately, if you can, build your own and automate the core functions that you can, so you can free up your time, and also focus on the things like crowd control. Actually quite important. So I'm going to actually do quite well for time here, but as the kind of someone who's founded that community, you kind of set the tone for how that community is kind of run, and people will kind of look for you to how the rest of the community is set out. But there are some kind of benefits, and I want to talk about a couple of these before I kind of wrap up. Helping, there's been many cases where we've actually helped people find work. So and actually people directly in the community, through the work they've done in the community, have made those connections, and so many people have been hired or found their first infosec job or whatever it may be from the community work that we've done. Those connections have actually happened, and there's like probably about 50 people I know plus that have found their first infosec job through the work that we've done and work that the community has done. So, and that's through research. So one of my moderators, for example, we did some research together, and actually that research, once published, actually helped them found their first piece of work in infosec. So these kind of projects that you work on can actually lead very quickly to infosec work. You could inspire new communities, or you can inspire people to form their own communities, and that's a great thing. We want people to do that. We want people to kind of be inspired by the work or by the community or whatever it may be, to kind of spin up their own. And also helping people join that new wider community as well, in terms of people that may be developers, or people that might be working in infrastructure and looking to get their first job. Actually, by participating and engaging, they'll pick up the skills or get the advice, or and if they're working on their the OSCP, having people in the community can kind of guide them through that process and the preparation they need to do is one of the most common things we find, or people asking what certification they should be doing, and then people getting help and trying to get that. So interview prep, whatever it may be, there's always something. If you've got to drop in that kind of environment, you can really help, right? So it's one of those things which I think is a good thing. It's a positive thing, right? And we should be doing that more. And it's actually, from my own experience, and having done this only for 3 years, but it still feels like a long time. I used to have hair when I started running a community, but it's one of the best things you can do, and if it's done right, can open up a lot of opportunities for everyone. So it's one of those things which I think that we should be doing. So it's actually kind of worked, and I'm quite surprised that Discord actually worked for this. But you should think about setting up a community. It's a great way to collaborate on things. It's a great way to put yourself out there and give back. And highly recommend it. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. It's very difficult. If it's a small community, it's obviously a lot easier. If you're running a community of like 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 plus people, can be quite chaotic, but it's definitely worthwhile. There are many platforms you can use. Find the one that works for you, or the idea that you have. That again is definitely worth looking into, and think about why your community kind of needs to exist and what purpose it's going to serve. So why does this exist, and why should we be thinking about setting this community up, and how's it going to be slightly different? I have no idea why I use Discord to make this presentation. It doesn't actually make a great presentation tool, but yeah, it kind of worked, but didn't really work. So think about the right medium for you, and think about why your community is going to exist. I guess I'd add to that as well that that this is one of those things where I've seen many communities spin up and kind of disappear because they haven't put the right things in place at the early stages. So learn from my many mistakes about not find the right people quite quickly. Make sure you've got the right code of conduct in place. Make sure you know what you're trying to do. Keep people engaged, and you'll be successful. So I'm going to finish up a little bit early, and I'm quite surprised I went through this, but I've actually built this Discord server, and the plan of this server is actually you should come and join it, just to see if this actually works. So if you are on the chat at some point, you've got the invite for my my community at the top there, and you've got the invite for this server as well. So if you want to jump in here at some point, it should work. And I will be on the Discord server for the Red Team Discord server to answer your questions. So I think I'm going to finish a couple of minutes early because somehow I rattled through that, not realizing I was a bit early. But there you go. It gives the speaker following me a lot more time to kind of prep and stuff and come into the call. So anyway, so that's me. It's been an honor and a privilege sharing my brief overview of why you should build a community and my experience and my lessons. And I'd just like to thank you all.
Thank you so much, Stu. I really appreciate it. And it was pretty awesome. I don't know if you actually plan for it or not, but a lot of people actually are trying to go into the Discord server right now. As a matter of fact, they just figured out, and
there's people coming in. There you go. See, there you go. There's people coming in. That'll wave hi. There you go. Yeah. So there you go. You see, it works. This is the plan. It's meta, right? There you go. Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing my screen to protect people's privacy. But there you go. There you go. But yeah, that was the plan.
As well,
very cool.
And in Twitch as well, and you can actually hear it from your side. Anyways, as Stu mentioned, and as you actually know, because it's in the bottom of the screen, please join the conversation in Discord. The Red Team Village Discord server is in the bottom of the screen. Of course, we're sharing the one that Stu just presented as well. So we're gonna go in a break, and our next presenter will be with us in the next few minutes. Thank you again. Thank you, Stu.
Thank you very much.